I knew something was off the moment. I saw her truck parked crooked across my driveway. Bright yellow HOA enforcement stickers slapped across the windshield. And Karen, every bit the definition of an overbearing HOA president, was stepping out with a clipboard in hand, glaring like I had just declared war. My pond, nestled at the edge of my property, glistened under the early morning sun. Today, I just wanted a quiet fishing session. Maybe catch a few trout and forget about the world. But apparently, Karen had other plans. She marched straight to me, waving the clipboard as if it were some kind of sword. "You're fishing illegally," she barked. Her voice carried the self-righteous authority of someone who believed the world revolved around HOA rules and that she was the sun. I raised an eyebrow, leaning casually against my fishing rod. "Illegal? On my own property?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm. Karen wasn't buying it. "You're in violation of HOA guidelines. No fishing without a permit posted publicly at the pond." She gestured dramatically toward the water, as if the fish themselves would testify against me. I couldn't help but smirk. I had been paying close attention to every regulation, and this was the one she clearly misunderstood. Or, more likely, she just wanted a power trip. "You know, Karen," I said, reaching into my bag, "I happen to have the legal permit right here, granted by the local environmental board. This pond is on my land, and the permit explicitly allows fishing." I pulled out the official document, sliding it across the picnic table in front of her. Her eyes widened, and for a split second, I saw that classic mix of shock and disbelief. She had prepared for confrontation, for yelling, maybe even calling the cops, but she hadn't prepared for legal proof. Karen blinked rapidly, probably trying to figure out how to save face. Well, her voice faltered. I could almost see the gears spinning in her head, the ones desperate to justify her presence. Meanwhile, my line was still in the water, and the ripples carried a sense of calm that sharply contrasted with the chaos she brought. I knew this was just the beginning. Once someone like Karen smells authority, she refuses to back down easily. Even when proven wrong, I leaned back, casting my line lazily. "You can leave the pond now, Karen. Or I can explain this to the board, myself." That was enough to make her flinch. She had not anticipated being outmaneuvered legally. I could already predict the next steps. Complaints, emails, maybe even threats. But I was ready. This pond was mine, and today I would fish in peace. But as Karen stomped off, muttering under her breath, I realized this was far from over. If she came back, it wasn't just about fishing anymore. It was about control, pride, and her obsession with pretending she was law enforcement. And I had a front row seat to the showdown. I thought maybe Karen would just fume and leave. But by noon, she was back. This time with a level of intensity that could only be described as Mission Impossible, OA edition. She parked her car directly at the edge of my driveway, blocking my truck as if she were the gatekeeper of my property. Her clipboard had multiplied in importance, and her expression screamed, "I am the law here!" "Good afternoon," I said, trying to keep my tone casual. I had my fishing gear nearby, but now it felt more like armor. Karen didn't respond with civility. Instead, she stomped toward me, pointing at the pond like a general pointing at a battlefield. "You have no right to fish here without posting public notice of your permit," she said, her voice dripping with smug authority. I had already pulled out my permit once, but now, I realized, Karen wasn't going to leave until she tried to make this personal. I leaned on my fishing rod, letting the silence stretch for a beat too long. "Karen," I said slowly, "we've been through this. The permit is valid, and this pond is on my land. There's nothing illegal about what I'm doing." She rolled her eyes, clearly treating me like I was a child explaining why the sky is blue. Then it happened. She tried the classic intimidation tactic, the threat. "I'm going to report you to the HOA board and law enforcement. If you don't comply." She made it sound ominous, like a dark cloud looming over my peaceful pond. I calmly smiled. "Go ahead," I said. I've already informed the board and submitted all documentation. And as for law enforcement, I'll gladly show them the permit, too." Karen's confident stride faltered slightly. I could see the wheels turning in her head, realizing this confrontation wasn't going to be as simple as she thought. But she wasn't about to back down. "You don't understand the rules. You have to post notice for everyone to see," she insisted. I shook my head, casting my line gently into the water. "Karen, the rules exist to prevent confusion, not to bully homeowners. This is my property, and the board already knows I have the permit. The only thing left to do is respect the law and let me fish in peace." The words were calm, but they hit harder than any shouting match could. Her face twisted in frustration, and I could tell she was debating whether to escalate further. Karen wasn't used to being challenged, especially by someone who had all the documentation neatly stacked against her. I sat back, enjoying the quiet ripples of my pond, feeling like I was in a standoff, but with fish instead of guns. Little did I know, Karen wasn't finished. She had one more move up her sleeve, and it was going to make her previous attempts look amateur. The showdown at my pond was about to reach a whole new level, and this time, it wouldn't just be about fishing. By late afternoon, Karen's persistence had reached a new level. She returned, this time armed with a stack of HOA rule books, pamphlets, and what looked like an official-looking stamp. Her expression radiated determination and pure irritation that her previous attempts had failed. I could practically see the gears turning in her mind. If I can't scare him, I'll confuse him with paperwork. She marched to the edge of the pond and waved the papers dramatically. "I've brought all the rules, regulations, and fines. You're clearly not following the guidelines," she announced, as if reading from a script she had rehearsed all week. Her voice echoed across the water, startling a couple of ducks that had been enjoying the afternoon sun. I stayed calm, sitting in my folding chair with my fishing rod in hand. "Karen," I said, tilting my head, "I appreciate your dedication, but this is still my property, and my permit is valid. I've already submitted all documentation to the HOA, board, and the local authorities. Everything you're waving around here doesn't change that." Her eyes narrowed, and she leaned closer, as if proximity could magically make her rules enforceable. "You must follow HOA protocol. Posting notice is non-negotiable. You could face fines or legal action." I leaned back, letting my words land slowly, with the weight of certainty. "Karen, with all due respect, fines apply to violations. I am not in violation. Here's a copy of the permit. Again," I said, holding up the official document. "It clearly authorizes fishing in this pond. It's on my land, and it's legally binding. You cannot fine me for complying with the law." Her confident stance faltered. I could see the hesitation flicker across her face, the first crack in her armor. Karen wasn't used to confrontation being met with solid evidence. She was used to bluster, intimidation, and people quietly backing down. I, however, had all the proof I needed. Karen's voice wavered. But, she fumbled with her papers, trying to find another angle, some loophole that would let her regain control. The more she searched, the more apparent it became. She had nothing. My permit, my ownership, and the calm, undeniable fact that I was legally allowed to fish. All of it was a wall she could not scale. I cast my line into the pond again, feeling the serenity of the water contrast with the storm of Karen's frustration. "The board has been informed. Law enforcement has been informed. You can either accept that this is my property, or continue to embarrass yourself further," I said gently. She finally paused, staring at me, realizing she had been completely outmaneuvered. Her next move would determine whether this would end peacefully, or spiral into an even bigger HOA meltdown. By the next morning, I could tell Karen had been stewing. Her car was back, but this time she arrived with an air of desperation rather than authority. I was sitting by the pond, coffee in hand, enjoying the early sunlight glinting off the water. My fishing rod rested lazily across my knees, the only sign that I was prepared for anything. Karen stormed up the path, waving her arms like a general rallying troops. You're in violation! You can't just flaunt the rules like this!" she shouted, her voice cracking under the strain of repeated failures. It was almost sad, if it weren't so satisfying. I stood, holding up my hands calmly. "Karen, I don't mean to embarrass you, but we've already gone over this. The permit is valid. The pond is on my land. I've done everything required by law and by the board. There's nothing left for you to argue about." She froze, realizing that her usual tactics, yelling, waving papers, pretending authority, were useless. Her expression shifted from fury to disbelief. I could almost see the internal panic setting in, the mental calculation of how to salvage her dignity, while facing undeniable proof of my rights. Then she tried one last desperate move. "I'm calling the police. They'll... "Please do," I said with the calmest tone possible. "I'll show them my permit. They'll see everything is in order." Karen's eyes widened. She had expected me to flinch, to scramble, to beg or explain. But instead, I was confident, prepared, and completely unbothered. She faltered, her shoulders slumping slightly, and I knew at that moment the battle was over. Her bluff had been called, and she had no cards left. After a long pause, she muttered something incoherent, shoved her papers into her bag, and stormed back to her car. I watched as she drove off, the tension in her posture unmistakable. She had tried to assert control over something that wasn't hers to control, and failed spectacularly. I returned to my chair by the pond, casting my line once again. The water rippled gently, and for the first time that day, everything felt peaceful. The ducks returned, the sunlight danced across the surface, and the simple pleasure of fishing resumed its rightful place. As I sat there, I reflected on the showdown. Karen's insistence on rules, fines, and imagined authority had collided headfirst with preparation, calm reasoning, and legal clarity. The lesson was clear. No amount of intimidation could trump evidence and patience. My pond, my permit, my peace, and the satisfaction of watching Karen's empire of authority crumble made every tense moment worth it. Finally, I cast my line one more time, smiling to myself. The HOA had been tested, and I had won. Karen would probably try another scheme someday, but I knew one thing for certain. As long as I had my permit and my calm, this pond and my peace would remain mine. The showdown was over, and the pond had been restored to its rightful order. If you enjoyed watching me handle Karen and her ridiculous antics, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future HOA showdowns. Drop a comment below telling me what you would do if someone tried to boss you around on your own property. And give this video a like if you love a good Karen versus homeowner showdown.